We are ready, my king.
Tell me, Lenakis, have you ever gone fishing with your son?
No, never. A soldier's life is all I've had the honor to know.
I would have liked to have gone fishing with my son. But now... let us meet our fate, shall we? Spartans! Every breath that you have taken has led you to this moment. Every drop of blood, sweat, and tear, all of it has led to where you stand right now. The Persians come to make slaves of us all. I have a better idea. I say we drench the gods with their bloods! What say you, Spartans? For our sons! For our daughters! For Sparta!
We are betrayed, my king. Xerxes knows of the path behind the mountain. They are coming.
By dawn, you will be completely surrounded.
We are Spartans. When are we not?
Spartans. That word will mean nothing when Xerxes wipes your bloodline from the face of the earth.
Today was a day the Persians will never forget. Tomorrow is a day the world will remember.
There we go. Go team. How hot was that? Was that sexy or what? I think it was. So, for those of you wondering, that was the a new cinematic trailer sort of thing for the new Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's apparently the opening sequence of the game, so that's kind of cool, nonetheless. It reminds me a lot of the opening of Unity, actually, where you have all the Templars and the Crusaders, and they're running around, and it's a big, beautiful fight sequence. So that's probably going to be the combat tutorial, and then they'll ease their way back in. So it's a mega flashback, and then you go back to like a regular flashback that is the entire game. So it's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued. We have some stuff to talk about today. Like, to be honest, it was not a huge news week. There's not a whole lot to discuss, so most of this is going to be running through the stories and stuff that we have, and then after that probably just some Q&A type stuff and then we'll call it good, because yeah. For those of you who are patrons, also I want to just remind you and announce that the new critique is up for patrons right now. So if you go over to Patreon and look at the page under like the message board, you can actually see the link to it, and you can watch the critique right now or after the show. It comes in at like 45 minutes long, so it's a longer one, not crazy long, but it's a good one. But yeah, no, lots of good stuff to check out, but just wanted to let you know about that. For all of the people that are in here, thanks for coming out live. We're going to have more people joining us, I'm sure. If you're watching the show afterwards, if you want to listen on the go, check out SoundCloud, check out Podbean and iTunes. We're on all of it, and you can download the show, put it like on your smartwatch, which is something I figured out I can do now. On my smartwatch, I can actually download like a podcast to it and then listen to it with Bluetooth headphones without needing my phone at all. It's pretty cool. So I kind of recommend that you check that out, because I think it's gonna be a good time. I think it's gonna be cool. As for the big things to talk about, of course we'll start with the, if I can go back here, we'll start with like the big news of the day. Like right here, UK sales charts, Spider-Man PS4 sets record. So I have played Spider-Man. I did finish Spider-Man. We'll talk about it a little bit. I'm not going to get crazy spoilery. I'm mainly going to be talking about like the gameplay, the like the way that they've structured everything. I don't really feel the need to get in detail into the story and all of that, just because I don't think that's necessary. What I will say is that the game gets dark pretty quickly, and kind of surprisingly quickly. And I actually think it really works well. And then after that, they just kind of, I'm trying to get the next shot set up, which is why I look absent-minded. But after that, like, it really refines itself, and I think it's actually pretty solid. I really enjoy it. But we're going to talk about all of that. The first thing, though, is that the sales look like they were very good. The UK is one of the few markets that we actually get numbers on, which is why we're looking at the UK sales charts. It's not just because we're picking on the UK. It's because they release most of the numbers. It was the same thing with God of War. It's just how it works. The US doesn't tend to release these types of things, or at least Sony isn't forced to release these numbers early in the US for whatever reason. I'm sure somebody knows. It's above my pay grade, though. Basically what this was, Marvel's Spider-Man, as they write here on GameSpot, developed by Insomniac Games, takes the #1 spot on the UK sales chart for the week ending September 8th. According to Sales Monitor Chart Tracker, the PS4 exclusive is, quote, the biggest debut on an individual format since the PS4 version of Call of Duty World War II. End quote. Spider-Man also has become the fastest selling title starring the web slinger, and the fastest selling Marvel title, beating out Lego Marvel Superheroes by a, quote, big margin. Then they go on and describe the other sales. It looks like they did pretty well. Now, that doesn't give us a whole lot of context as to how well this actually did. It just says it took the #1 spot. And when you look at the other games on the list, like #2 was Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. Third was Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, they weren't going up against hard hitters. They weren't going up against like Red Dead, for instance. So it doesn't tell us a whole lot. But what does tell us a little bit more is this one. Let me move my head so that you can actually see. There we go. Marvel's Spider-Man first week sales crushing God of War in some regions. And this is important because God of War, of course we know now, was the fastest selling PS4 exclusive ever released. So to be beating the pace of God of War is a good thing. It's a very good thing. Basically, what they did in this is Media Create, which is an analyst group or firm, I suppose, has provided sales numbers for the past week in Japan specifically, while Nintendo Switch continued to be the leader in terms of hardware sales. Sony's Superhero Adventure did quite well. They go on, according to the company's numbers, the game sold over 125,000 copies in its debut week, which isn't too shabby at all. In fact, it managed to lap God of War's sales numbers from earlier in the year by 2.5 times, as that game only sold around 46,000 units when it released back in April in the same region. So of course it's a small market. Of course there's a lot of potential crap that could go on here where it's like, maybe Japanese markets weren't as interested in Spider-Man or God of War, but American audiences were much more intrigued by it. It's really hard to say. Just on blind instincts, I would have to imagine that Japanese audiences would have been more intrigued in God of War. It just seems, that's my hunch. So it is surprising that Spider-Man has taken this big of a lead in this particular market, which is phenomenal, and I think that's very solid. The other big thing to note is that God of War released early in the year, so most people who wanted it already have it and have already played it. Very few people are going to be getting that game and just playing through it over the holidays. Spider-Man released in a window where it's set up specifically to be gifted over the holiday season. So Spider-Man sales are going to get boosted significantly over the holiday season as parents buy it for their kids and for friends and brothers and sisters. It's totally going to help the numbers. So I would actually say I expect I expect, my phone thinks I'm talking to Bixby. No, Bixby. I hate Bixby so much. I think I said this on the last show. I hate Bixby. I think it's terrible. Shut up. I'll stop saying your name. I'm sorry. Okay. First world problems. So I think it's actually going to outsell God of War. That's my estimation. That's my expectation, is that they're going to crush it. Just because it seems to me that's where they're headed. A couple things in the chat I saw that I should probably address. Banana Brains, where's your verified check mark, Lukey? If you don't have a check mark, you are not a good YouTuber. I actually looked into it. It used to be the policy that basically it was completely open. So YouTube, you would go through, you'd fill out paperwork, and they'd have an actual human being look at your channel and determine whether or not you deserved a check mark. And the way that they've said it, or the way they said it, is that you have to have a, quote, significant following. Now, I filled out that form probably when I had like 10,000 subscribers, because I was super impressed by that and I thought that was amazing. Which is still kind of is. Like, I would still be happy if only 500 people were subscribed. Like, that's still incredible to me. So the fact we're at like 60,000 is phenomenal. Thank you once again. Thank you. But I filled out that paperwork. The person that reviewed it disagreed that I had a significant following, and so they declined the request for the verified badge. And the way they have it set up is that once you do that, at the time, you could only do that once every 6 months, or I believe is what it was. Once every 6 months, you could apply for a verified check mark box or whatever. So I didn't get it. And after that 6 months had transpired, they had changed the policy so that it's a hard stat number. You can only fill out the form once you hit 100,000 subs. And once you've hit 100,000 subs, then you're pretty much guaranteed to like get it. It's not really a question, and there's not much wiggle room in that. So I appreciate the new standard, but like Banana Brain says, I've seen YouTubers with 25,000 that are verified, and that's because they probably had 25,000 when they applied for it. If anything, that's kind of sad, because it means that they haven't grown the channel in like I think it's been like a year since they changed that. So it's a significant matter of fact. I think it's frustrating, but what are you going to do? We'll get to 100,000 sooner rather than later, probably before the holiday season, especially if the stuff I've got planned comes through. So I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. Do you think Henry Cavill will be a good Geralt? I actually really do think so. Much better than the other alternatives I was seeing. I heard some people talk about Mads, what's his name? The guy that's working with Hideo Kojima on the new Death Stranding game. who kind of looks like a stillborn baby. I think it could work. Mads Mikkelsen or something like that. I think it could work. I think Henry Cavill is probably the better option. He's got the kind of sexy vibe that I think Geralt has, at least in the games and in my estimation on the books. Mads is a little more creepy, and he would play like an evil wizard, I think. I'm not sure if he would be my pick for the sexy hero, but we'll see. We'll see. As for this, let me slide through here. This was just cool. So Spider-Man is, even though it's already out, it will be adding a new Game Plus mode, but they haven't really talked about what that's going to include. I just thought that was kind of cool. So there will be a new Game Plus mode where you go through, you get all of your suits, you get all of your abilities and stuff, and you just go back through the game, and it's harder. Now, if you're going to play Spider-Man, if you haven't played it already, I heavily recommend that you go through and play the game on the hardest difficulty that you can possibly manage. It really does make a difference. For the combat system, it's heavily inspired by the Batman Arkham games. I mean, like, very heavily inspired. It is a free flow combat system. There's a lot of smaller games and like puzzle sections that are straight out of Arkham. So it's good, it's fun, I enjoy it, but it's a little bit different. It's much more forgiving and at the same time not forgiving. So what I mean by that is in the combat system in Arkham, if you dodge or try to counter without there being an attack. So if you have you're surrounded by 10 guys and they're all attacking you, and then you try to parry or dodge and nobody's attacking, so there's nothing for you to actually dodge or parry, your combo counter will set down to 0. You'll reset, you'll lose all of the power-ups and stuff that you had. So it punishes you for button mashing. Spider-Man doesn't do that. You can dodge 50 times in a row without an enemy attacking you, and you won't lose your combo counter. You won't lose any of the focus that you've built up. You won't lose any of the stuff that you've accumulated. So it's much more forgiving in that sense. In the non-forgiving sense is that later in the game, they get very spammy with some of the projectiles. So like guns and grenades, they start really spamming the crap out of that. I think that it works, but yeah. It also annoys me. I've climbed this tower, and you can't actually just like climb and sit on top of the pole. You have to do like the web zip to it. It's a little thing, but it's kind of annoying. Banana says, Luke, I've heard the story in Spider-Man is actually very good, very emotional, and some have said it was a better story than most of the movies. Do you concur? I will. I mean, I won't spoil anything. It's certainly way better, miles ahead of anything that like the Amazing Spider-Man did, which was just completely nonsensical and frankly an insult to cinema and like 4 of the 5 senses. It just, the Amazing Spider-Man movies were atrocious. I'm baffled anybody signed off on the script. It's terrible. Anyway, I could rant about that for a long time, but it's way better than those. It's not as campy. It is campy at times, but it's not as campy as like the original trilogy from Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire. So it's just different. I like Tom, or what's Tom, whatever the new Spider-Man, the young guy is in the latest movies. I think he does a good job in the newer movies, but I think that it's written like a bunch of 50-year-old business executives sat around. Tom Holland, thank you, King Kai. It's like a bunch of 50-year-olds sat around a table and were like, what would the youth like? And then they just started throwing stuff together. And it comes off super cringy, and Zendaya's in it. And I like Zendaya. In The Greatest Showman, she's phenomenal. But in that, it was just ridiculous. I thought it was cringy. I don't like them. They're trying way too hard. With Spider-Man on the PS4, they do a really good job of balancing the campy vibe and just being goofy and having fun with it. Like, there's entire sequences where Spider-Man early in the game, like in the first couple hours, he's helping out the police chief, and he's, you know, helping with some crime. He's taking out some of the bad guys, and he starts joking around that he's Spider Cop. And so he's like, Spider Cop knew he couldn't do this. He knew he had to trust his senses, but the world wouldn't like it. It's just funny. Like, it doesn't take itself very seriously, but not in the sense where he's just like a prick and somebody who shouldn't be allowed in public, like where we ran into in The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, where so often it was just like he wasn't being funny, he was just being irresponsible. I just, okay, I'm going to stop there because I freaking hate those movies. But I think this game does it very, very well. And not to spoil anything, but at the end of the game, they actually embrace the consequences of the world that they've established. So it's not like a sitcom where it ends and it sets up this dynamic and this duality, and you have to choose like between two bad choices. It doesn't like try to cushion it and everybody wins, everyone's happy, and we all live happily ever after. It's like, no, that there are consequences and there is damage done. So it's done really, really well. I think it's good. Yeah, in the game there is a mini map, just to say you should turn it off. It's mini maps are the bane of open worlds. I don't know why they still include them, especially in Spider-Man. There is literally no reason for there to be a mini map in Spider-Man. The only reason they have it, I suspect, is because there's an ungodly number of collectibles in the game, and the collectibles are necessary in order to upgrade your skills and like suit powers and abilities. So you have to go on these collectathon tirades, and they're just scattered all over the place. They're not particularly interesting unless like you collect a backpack, you open the menu, and then you listen to the little spiel that he gives. It can work, but it's just not great. This particular gameplay was pre-release. This was off of an interview that the game's director did at Gamescom, I think is what it is. So all while playing this, they're talking about it and looking at it. Fun little thing, my capture card, this, I actually have it here because it's a piece of crap. This little thing, which is what I've been using for a while on like my PS4 Slim that I have, it's gotten the job done for the last like year and a half, but it just completely crapped out. So it's not doing anything at all. So I had to order a new capture card, and to get one in the quality that I'd need, because I like to be able to record straight off the PS4 Pro with HDR and 4K, and like I'd like to do all of that, increase the quality of the games that I play on there. And it just is very expensive. I won't go into money because I don't like to be that guy. But it's very expensive to get the hardware that you need to do it right. And so, yeah, check out Patreon because my stuff keeps breaking. So, yeah. No, I think it's good. Sifu Old School says Spider Sense has to be actually timed with an attack. It is not automatic like the Arkham counter. You can get hit in Spidey Sense if you don't pay attention to attacks on spectacular difficulty. That is true. So what you'll see, the kind of notification like that, the Spidey Sense, it pops up even on the harder difficulties, but it will turn blue during the ideal window. So like at the ideal point when you should be countering, it will turn slightly blue, and then you react to that. Now, most people are not going to be reacting to that visually. It's going to be just a feeling, a rhythmic sense of when you should be countering. And by the end of the game, you're really, really good at it. In the last boss fight, for instance, I didn't get hit once, and it's just because you get acclimated and accustomed to the rhythm and the flow of the combat. A buddy of mine just started playing the game because he was waiting, he was out of town, but he struggled fairly significantly, without calling him out, he struggled fairly significantly with getting the exact timing for the parry down, because when the Spidey Sense shows up, that's not when you should be parrying. You should wait a second, wait for them to get closer or in the middle of the attack, and then you do it, and it's fluid. You can counter or dodge on the when the Spidey Sense first shows up, but quite often, depending on the enemy, they'll even track you. So it doesn't even necessarily guarantee that you escape or get out of whatever danger you were in. Sometimes it doesn't even do that much. So it's well balanced, and I like how fast paced it is, and it really does make you keep track of like 10 people at the same time. It's really, really solid. I think it works pretty well. Let's see. Just reading through the comments. Red Dead Redemption 2 releases in less than 45 days, and we only have 6 minutes of gameplay. We still need a second and third gameplay trailer, plus the online trailer, then the launch trailer. Yeah, no, they're going to be showing off a lot. Did they ever release a follow-up after that initial gameplay trailer we got? Because the lady in the video said we're going to be getting more, and they're going to be showing off more, and I'm not sure if they ever did that, so I don't know. I don't think I saw it. Maybe there was one more that I'm forgetting about. But yeah, no, I mean, everybody knows that game's going to be really, really solid, but it is concerning that they haven't shown anything off. But I'll tell you straight up, out of the stuff that they showed for Spider-Man, I don't think it's necessarily reflective of the core game. Like, once you're about 10, 15 hours in, there's a huge change, not to get into spoilers, but there's a huge change in the story, and the entire world around you changes. And I think it works very, very well. And I'm very glad that they did it, because one of my first criticisms of this new Spider-Man game was that it was too cheerful. Like, it was too cartoony. There were no stakes. There was nothing bad happening. Everyone was just like, oh yeah, we're so happy and life is great. And MJ's like, yeah, no, I know I broke up with you, but whatever. Like, let's just be friends. Let's just hang out. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of like 5 minutes, it goes from campy, goofy, whatever, doesn't take anything seriously, to holy crap, this just got intense. And it maintains that for like 10 hours. And it works very, very well. And then it climaxes with real consequences, which I think is a very good thing. But my goodness, these challenge things are the bane of my existence that you see on screen right now. So basically there's also challenges which challenge you usually to just like run around, grab bombs, and then zip them with webs. I don't know what it is, but there are some of these challenges that are just excessively difficult to max out. So if you're going for 100%, it's going to be quite the journey to do that, because it's kind of ridiculous at times. I get that it's supposed to be challenging, and it's like the gold medal, so you should be exceptional at the game to get it, but I'd like to think that I'm fairly good at it after spending like 35 hours in the game, and even still it feels like I'm fighting an uphill battle, but whatever. Whatever. Some people don't like the combat system. I think it works pretty well. It embraces the fluidity of Spider-Man. I think it works. It is an adjustment. I think it works within the world that they've established. It does at times feel a little too chaotic and hectic. Like maybe there should be a couple big hitters here and there that make you change your tactics. And let's be real, I'll just say this. It's very common in these free flow combat system style games, like any of the Arkham games or this game, a lot of the Assassin's Creed games as well. The boss fights are atrocious. Like they're so bad, it's ridiculous. The final boss fight in this game, not saying who it's against or what it consists of, but it's basically you do one thing and you repeat that roughly 7 times, and then the game ends in a cutscene, and then you have some quick time events, and that's kind of it. It looks great, it feels good, the story makes it work, but it's just the boss fights are something they'll really have to improve on for the sequel. Like, without a doubt in my mind, that's the largest weakness in this game. It's really bad. But yeah, no, as always, there's so much to talk about when it comes to Spider-Man. It's really solid. I enjoy it. And I recommend that you check it out as well, if you haven't already. It's a pretty solid and fun game. For those of you who, let me slide through here. We'll go through this. Hollow Knight is coming out on the PS4. This is one of my favorite games on Switch. I also played it on PC, so I played through it twice. It's one of my favorite like platformers, period. I don't normally like platformers, but this one is very, very well done. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's just phenomenal. I highly, highly recommend it. And we're going to be able to play through it on PS4 now too. So maybe I'll play through it a third time. I can heavily recommend it. Heavily recommend it. And usually it's only like 10, 15 bucks. It's kind of ridiculous how cheap you can get it for what you're getting. It's really phenomenal. So I recommend that you check that out, because Hollow Knight is amazeballs. This was another story in line with the video we watched at the start of the show. Assassin's Creed Origins, which launches early October, or Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Is that what I said? I feel like I said Origins. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Either way, this game's combat was apparently heavily influenced by Greek art specifically. And basically what this story describes is how Phillips, who is, where's his full name? It just says Phillips. I don't, Scott Phillips, the game director. Scott Phillips said that they went, and their head of animation actually went back and looked at, that's funny, and looked at paintings and like drawings and carvings from this period to actually get an inspiration for like combat stances and that type of thing. Now, of course, those combat stances were highly romanticized. It's kind of like when we look at Washington sailing across the, or I guess not sailing, but boating, traveling across the Delaware. Was he actually standing on the bow of the boat and like leading the charge? Probably not. Like, he's probably wrapped in a blanket in the back, but it's romanticized. Like, and at the end of the day, it's a video game. Who really cares? So with this same kind of story, they looked at all of those things, all those paintings, saw how they gripped their weapons, saw how they stood in the paintings and drawings, and then they emulated that in the combat system, which is a nice little detail. I mean, I'm a firm believer that video games are an artistic medium, and so I'm always glad to see when people take these extra steps to be artistically honest with the form that they're working on. So I'm intrigued by this, and I think it's kind of cool. It might come off as super cringy once we get the game, but yeah, who can say? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's see. Do I have any other stories? Oh, this one's also just kind of cool. Diablo 3, the Eternal Collection, coming out on Nintendo Switch November 2nd. So that's kind of cool. I'm not sure if you're a Diablo fan, but if you are, check it out. I've never really actually played Diablo, and I actually said last week to one of my roommates, because he was playing Diablo and chillaxing with it. He really enjoys it. And I said, yeah, no, I would play Diablo if it came out on Switch, because then I could take it with me to like class and it would be great. And then like we get this announcement that they're actually doing it. So I guess now I've got to either eat my words, or I have to actually go for it. So we'll see. People were asking about Red Dead Redemption 2, thoughts on it. I'll talk about it. I can't show gameplay of it because Rockstar has a nasty tendency. Even when I did, like I went through, I wanted to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. So we played the trailer. I flipped it. I did a color grade on it, so the colors were distorted, and I even blurred it slightly. So if it's using any sort of image recognition software, by today's standards, as far as we understand it, there's no reason it should be able to figure that out, that this is a Rockstar-owned video. It's ridiculous. It's incredibly difficult for a computer to figure that out. And either the computer figured it out and Amazon or Google has some insane machine learning capabilities to the point where it automatically figured that out, or somebody that works over there was watching the video and flagged it, which is also technically possible, though unlikely. So that's why I haven't been able to actually show gameplay recently, and why when I wanted to do the gameplay reaction trailer, I couldn't really do it. And it's just because if I were to go through and do it, it would cause all sorts of potential issues. And you can, like, you can sort of cheat the system at times. It only works to an extent. Like, you can file disputes with Red Dead's development teams and Take-Two specifically, but that basically means that you fill out a piece of paperwork that says, oh no, I'm not violating your copyright or whatever, I'm not using this video, and then you just pray to the dear Lord and Savior Gandhi that they don't actually see your piece of paperwork because it's too small for them to really worry about. They're like, oh, $40 in revenue, who cares? So that's usually what it consists of. But what quite often will happen is they'll actually, if they do see it, then they'll say, nope, that is our stuff, come at us, we have lawyers, and now we're going to issue a community strike because you falsely claimed that you didn't abuse our copyright. So it can cause a lot of issues. But nonetheless, we can still talk about it. I think the game's intriguing. I think there is a real concern that they are going to be too greedy when it comes to the online stuff. Grand Theft Auto 5 was a good game as a single-player experience, but where it really helped Rockstar out was in the multiplayer and in the online portion, which to this day is still making billions of dollars for them. So more than anything, I'm sure Take-Two is pressuring them to just make another online, behemoth system. How they do that without causing issue, I'm honestly not sure, because part of the thing with Grand Theft Auto 5 that made it successful was all of the racing stuff and all the cars and planes and all that stuff. That's not in Red Dead Redemption 2. There's horses and maybe boats. That's it. So what are they going to do to have all of these online challenges and stuff? Is the combat system really going to be that much fun that it's going to cause people for years to come to continue playing it? Maybe. I doubt it, though, especially knowing the player base and the type of people that are playing Grand Theft Auto 5 online religiously at this point. So it's interesting, but I don't think that it's likely. So I just don't know how they're going to be able to manage an impressive online Red Dead Redemption. I'm sure they've spent 5 years figuring it out. They've probably been working on this since the day they set foot in the office and wanted to figure it out. But I just don't know how you do it. I think you can have some fun online stuff. You could have a big open world, sort of like a Fallout 76 thing, where you just all play together, go on heists together, rob a couple trains, I suppose. But eventually that's going to get boring and old, and I don't know how you keep that fresh and interesting for years to come. Years and years, which is the intention. The other reality might also be, to be perfectly honest, that they don't actually expect the online component of Red Dead Redemption 2 to be that sturdy. It'll do well, but it's not going to be a Grand Theft Auto 5. They might know that, which is why they're not shutting down Grand Theft Auto 5's online components after Red Dead releases. They're keeping that up. So it's very likely they know what's up, and they're just working on the next Grand Theft Auto game, which they'll launch in a year or two, maybe next-gen consoles. So around 2020, 2021, perhaps. And when they do that, then they'll double down on a crazy online system for Grand Theft Auto 6 or Grand Theft Auto. They'll probably move away from numbers. They'll probably go Grand Theft Auto Pearl Rabbit. I don't know. I think that's a type of vibrator. I think that's what it is. So so people still talking about the copyright issues for the trailers. Yes, it should fall under fair use under U.S. law. For those of you not familiar, in U.S. law, there's a concept known as fair use, which is that you can use somebody else's intellectual property, one, if it retains the intrinsic value of their original and initial work, and then if you also are contributing to it. And there's some other mitigating factors, but in general, that's what it primarily boils down to. So with this, it's yes, the trailer is still valuable. Watching the trailer yourself is still valuable. I'm adding something into it. I'm adding commentary. We're talking about it. So I'm technically advertising your game for you. And so I'm taking steps, and it falls under fair use for most under most definitions. The issue that Rockstar can throw at it is saying, well, this piece of work would not be possible without our intellectual property, and therefore it is not your intellectual property to use it. We are entitled to some of the revenue from it, at the very least some. The way YouTube is structured, it would mean they take all. Now, you can fight it. You can certainly fight it. You can do all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, if I fight it, a lot of the time they'll just shut down ad revenue for that video for however long that process takes. Usually it takes about 90 days to get resolved. And usually if that resolve happens, it's just because they never actually looked at it, like I was explaining earlier. A lot of the time they just didn't take the time to even respond because it wasn't worth their time. Because for a YouTuber, small YouTuber, $50 is a lot of money. For Take-Two, that's like so little money, it's like not even, you can't even explain it. So there are these factors that make it much more frustrating because, yeah, I could fight it. I could fill out the paperwork, wait 3 months once nobody's watching the video because the game will have released by that point, and get the ad revenue for it. But at that point, there's no point. Nobody's watching the video. So they really do just have the monopoly on it. And some YouTubers double down on it because the growth factor is more important than the revenue factor, which is okay. My experience, though, has been, because I'm not affiliated with the multi-channel network, I don't have some of the rights and abilities that other channels that do commentary on Rockstar games have. So some of the larger channels that do commentary for a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, they're part of a multi-channel network which negotiates certain rights and abilities for them. And means that, like, instead of having all of the ad revenue claimed and potentially that part of the video blacked out or muted, they instead go in and say, now you can't black it out and mute it, but you can take the ad revenue. That's usually how it'll work. Because I don't have the multi-channel network, because I don't feel like giving some stranger 60% of my revenue, I don't do that. So it means that when I get that copyright claim from Rockstar, it, instead of just taking my revenue and that's it, they often will lead to blacking out portions of the video. They'll mute portions of the video that have the music that they recognized. It can cause a lot of issues. So it's just kind of a mess. It's just kind of a mess. Yes, exactly, George. Dab on the haters. Dab, dab, dab. Dab, dab, double dab. Can't go wrong. But, I mean, that's really all the news that we have. I'm intrigued by Rockstar, or by Red Dead. I think it's going to be great. We're going to love it. I'm not going to be doing anything with the online. I'm going to play it for probably like the 20-25 hour campaign that it has. I'm going to enjoy it. It'll be worth $60 and then I'll move on. Like, I don't expect anything revolutionary. With this last thing I want to talk about, because this was hilarious to me. So Apple gave a keynote yesterday on their new iPhones, which, like, let's be completely honest with ourselves. If you didn't see the presentation, don't bother. The iPhones are like a total joke. They're no different from any of the others. So, like, if I go and actually go to apple.com, I can't actually type apparently. Apple, it's not working. Apple.com. There we go. So, like, if I go here, they basically announced two different iPhones, the iPhone XS and iPhone XR. And, like, the XS is just like a big phone, and they named it the iPhone XS. I think they should have stuck with saying X, because then it sounds like XS. Like, it's an excess of coolness. It's just super awesome. But, like, they announced that it has a new chip in it, but they didn't figure out how to put the fingerprint scanner in the bottom. All they did was add a new dual camera system and then advanced Face ID, which is apparently faster now. And that's really all it is. And then a 6.5 inch screen variant. I have the Note 9, and I freaking love this thing. Like, it's incredible. I love it to death. And I just don't see any reason why anybody would go back to Apple even with this. It just isn't good enough. And then the R is just like a cheap phone. That's like all it is. Then a new Apple Watch, but that's about it. But the reason I bring this up is because Bethesda was actually there and showed off Blades, which is the new game that they're doing. And they showed off some gameplay and some little stuff. It looks to run pretty well. They're pretty excited about it. I will be honest, like, it's not really my cup of tea. I think it'll be fun. It'll probably make them some money, but you know, I'll stick with Red Dead. And probably not Fallout 76. I've noticed a lot of people have kind of mentally checked out from Fallout 76. Like, everyone was super excited about it for a little while, and then all of a sudden everybody was kind of pissed off at Bethesda and didn't want to do anything with it. And I think that's probably just a result of the marketing campaign. I think it's been pretty bad. I don't think they did it very well. Everybody just looks at it now as pretty much what it is, which is a reskinned Fallout 4 with online components, and that's really all it is. And as a result, it's uninspired, uninteresting, and people just will have better games to play. They're like, yeah, I'll just play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which apparently is much longer, much longer than Origins and Red Dead Redemption 2, which, to be honest, are going to be much better and much more fleshed out games. I used to play Bethesda games for the story and the world exploration, and now it looks like it's just going to be a collectathon that's built for grind, and that's just not for me. I am not a grindy player. I can't do it. Gaming shouldn't feel like a chore. I don't understand it. I never will. It's just not my thing. Some people love it. Some people love that style of thing. Some people love Warhammer and Destiny. But like, when I ask a buddy of mine who's a big grinder, like, it's unhealthy. I realize that sounds like a euphemism, but I swear it's not. A lot of people or this guy who just grinds like crazy. He loves Destiny type games. It's just what he is. And he talks about gaming like it's work. Like, he talks about the video game like, yeah, I spent 4 hours working to get this suit. It's like, why did you want the suit? Because I did. Like, that's all. Like, there's no reason for it. He's just doing it because he's doing it. And I don't really know why that's the case. I don't know. Yeah. So, who knows? Hi, Geralt. Glad to have you here. Glad to see you. Let's see. Banana Brains. There better be a final flush today. So, interesting topic. I'll bring that up now because we're nearing the end of the show. But last couple episodes, we haven't had a final flush. And there were actually a couple reasons for that. First time was because I was kind of pressed for time and we kind of ran out. And it was good. The second time was actually because I did the analytics on it, and it actually greatly hurts the show when we have a final flush. I'm not totally sure why, but it does. People tend to click away, they check out, people just kind of move on. It's weird. And then, of course, for like the advertising algorithms, they tend to not like some of the jokes that get through the filter. So what I think we'll do is, after the show, we'll pop over to the Discord and we'll have a little final flush in the lobby where we can go through all of that stuff. It's unfortunate that that's kind of where it ended up, but I think it's going to be better for everybody, and it also won't lead to weird lulls in the show where I'm waiting for 2 minutes as everyone throws their comments in. But that's what we'll do. After the show, we'll jump in. Your daughter is black. That's good. We might bring it back on the Luke show, which I'm restructuring as well. I want to bring that back in. I'm getting near to the point where I think I'm going to be able to potentially leave my day job and do YouTube as my job through school, which will be really exciting. But to help maintain that, I do need more of your help. I need, like, you know, Patreon support. You guys help make everything a reality. Check out the merch, that sort of thing. Super chats, all of that really does honestly and truly help. And we'll get there. I think we're on our way. But once we do that, like, then we get to the point where we can stream multiple times a week and do it. So, and yeah, I've wanted to be more involved on the Discord. I'll also say somebody like tried to hack or something. Basically, I got locked out of my own Discord account where it was asking for two-factor authentication. I never set up that, like, two-factor authentication, and then when I went through and did it on, like, the new phone, it didn't actually work. So I'd put in the codes and it would not do anything, and I would ask to send the codes through SMS and it wouldn't do it. It logged me out of all of my computers, tablets, phones, everything. So I just literally couldn't get on Discord. But I didn't want to, like, call attention to it because I didn't want whoever did it, if it was like an honest hacking attempt, I didn't want them to get, like, weird credit for it. So I just never really talked about it as I tried to, like, email the guys and do all of that. Eventually it fixed itself. Like, I can get on now, but that's why I was kind of absent for probably a week. It's actually the second time it's happened. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, that's what it is. But lots of good stuff. Not a whole lot to talk about this week, like I said, but nonetheless, we had fun. And I think a good time overall. But like I said, we're going to have the little final flush over in the Discord. Jump over there if you haven't been over there already. We're going to chill out for a few minutes. And like I said, patron supporters now have access to the next critique, which is on the one, the only. Actually, let me pull up the our little thumbnail so that I can be coy. I have this huge folder filled with all the thumbnails from, like, the last year and a half, and so every time, and it's not like chronological, so I actually just have to look through, and it's actually a really good test. I usually don't use something as a thumbnail if I can't pick it out in a certain period of time. So yeah, this, I'm gonna flash it real quick. I'm gonna flash you guys. This is the thumbnail for the new video. Make of it what you will. Boom, boom. That's all you're getting. Thanks for coming out, guys. I love you all. Peace out. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the Discord chat. Bye bye. Love you all. Hugs and kisses.